can't believe you got me to do this.
This is great. All right, we are going for a winter walk. You can do a snow angel?
I really want to.
Do it. Oh! Oh!
Right in the heart!
Oh! Oh my gosh. She just hit me with a snowball right in the chest. Good morning, kind people of the internet. Today I would like to talk a little bit about how I found the tenor saxophone that I use and why I play the instrument that I do, and what sort of led me on the path to finding and choosing this particular instrument. So this is the horn, as many of you have seen in the videos. This is a selmer balanced action. And I looked it up on the Selmer site at some point, and it's from around 1934 or 1935. The serial number is 25,000. And I was lucky to find this one because it's original lacquer, and most of the lacquer is still on it. It's maybe, well, it's maybe about 75% still lacquered. And just looking at the bell, there's actually some really amazing engravings, and I don't know if the camera would pick it up too well, but even on this back side, there's like this whole little scene of like sailboats and like a lake and some mountains and pine trees, and it's just really an amazing instrument. So I know it can be tricky for younger players to really decide on an instrument that's good for them, and I know it was difficult for me, and it took a really long time to really find instruments that I liked. But going through that process, I know really helped me sort of develop my sound and improve my sound, but also my fundamentals, and just be more aware of how I was playing the instrument. So hopefully what I share will help younger people if you're going through that process of choosing a horn and trying different horns and everything. So just a little bit of background about myself. I started on clarinet in the 6th grade, and then I didn't start saxophone until I got into high school. It was about 3 or 4 years after that when I started playing saxophone. And I did that because I wanted to play in jazz band. So I started on alto, and I played alto, and then gradually added tenor as well when I was in high school. And when I was in high school, I sort of discovered Cannonball Adderley and got really into Cannonball. So I was sort of trying to play like him. Of course, I couldn't improvise at all, but I did actually transcribe some of his solos when I was in high school. Then when I got into college, I discovered Kenny Garrett. And for basically like 4 years, I tried my best to sound exactly like Kenny Garrett. And so I had like a Yamaha alto in high school, and then eventually I was able to get a Mark VI, Selmer Mark VI alto when I got in college. And that changeover also really helped me get a lot closer to Kenny Garrett's sound. So I was basically like a Kenny Garrett clone there for a little bit, just trying my best. Like I probably transcribed at least 10 Kenny Garrett solos and could play it along with the recording with no music, just doing my absolute best just to like cop his sound, his phrasing and everything. And then when I would play solos, I would really basically just try to like channel Kenny Garrett. So I got to the point where people were like, man, you sound like Kenny Garrett. And I was like, yes. I was happy for a little bit, then I was like, wait, why am I exactly trying to sound exactly like somebody else? I need to like get my own thing going, or else it's not really going to go anywhere. Otherwise, I'm just waiting for the next Kenny Garrett album to come out to know what I should sound like. So that's helpful, especially in the early years for learning. But then eventually, I think everybody sort of just naturally wants to take their own path. So after undergrad, I got into grad school where I was then studying with Antonio Hart, and he really sort of helped me just to develop my sound on alto and think about new sound concepts. Like, he's really into Johnny Hodges, and so just listening to a lot of Johnny Hodges and then trying out different ways of playing sort of opened up my ears to new things. And then right after that, I went on the road with the show where I had to play pretty much all tenor. So from then on, I really had to work on my tenor playing. So the tenor I had at that time was a Yamaha, and I was just playing a show, trying to get more comfortable with tenor. And to do that, I actually started listening specifically to more tenor players and trying to find tenor players that I liked so that I would have a sound to sort of model. And the big one for me at that time was Seamus Blake. I've got like all of his albums, really just started like having his stuff on loop. Like when we were traveling, when we were on the bus, I would just have like a playlist of his solos cut up so it was just the solo, and I would just listen to that stuff, just like hearing his articulation, his sound, and like how he sort of approached improvisation. And I just really liked everything about it, so I really tried to get that in my ears. At the same time, I was listening more to Chris Potter, also Tim Warfield. Of course, I had always listened to John Coltrane a lot as well, and I'm sure there are others at that time that aren't coming to mind, but really just trying to get comfortable with the tenor. It took me a long time, and I'm still trying to get more comfortable with it, but coming from the alto and the clarinet, which alto for me was a lot easier. Tenor, just bigger, trying to get the airstream and like the voicing right, and I didn't know what I was doing with my embouchure, so it took a while. So after I was on the road and I had like my Yamaha tenor, you know, eventually listening to all of these players and also checking out what types of instruments they had, it made me want to try out some different horns. So when I got off the road initially, I had been playing the Yamaha tenor for a while. I knew I wanted to try some vintage horns, and I had a friend that was selling a Mark VI tenor. So I had money saved up from being on the road, so I ended up getting my friend's tenor, bought that from him, and then I think I just sold the Yamaha, and I forget where I sold it. Maybe I just sold it online. But I had this Mark VI tenor, and so I was playing that for a while, and then I sort of was going deeper into the study of other tenor players, and then realized that a lot of my favorite sounds that I was hearing were coming from super balanced action tenors and then balanced action tenors, which are just the earlier models from the Selmer Mark VI. So in particular, that was like Seamus Blake and Branford Marsalis. I think at that time, those were the guys I was really into sound-wise. So I knew I wanted to find some of those types of instruments to play. And then I was back in Indianapolis and just sort of searching for a place where I could try those horns, and then I found Tenor Madness, which is in Waterloo, Iowa, and is owned by Randy Jones. And I figured out that I could just drive out there from Indy, so it was about a 6-hour drive. I would go out there, try horns for about 3 or 4 hours, and then drive home. And I did that at one point, and then ended up purchasing a super balanced action, and then brought it home and played it for maybe a couple months, and then decided actually I wanted a different one. I wanted the balanced action that I have now. So I went back, tried the balanced action again, back to back with the SBA. Then I was also trying Randy's horns, the team custom, and trying all of his different necks and everything, and really just thinking about the sound that I wanted. And I remember when I brought the SBA home, the first one that I got, it played well. It was a little more resistant in the low register. And then I also had the balanced action where I could play them back to back. And the biggest difference for me was the balanced action, I thought, had a much darker and fuller sound, especially in the low register, which I at the time I just couldn't get that on the SBA. So that is really the main reason why I chose the balanced action. So I ended up just going with the balanced action, even though I really liked Randy's horns, the TM Custom. There was just something about the quality of the vintage sound that for me just beat out the modern horns just a little bit, especially coming from the Yamaha. Yamahas are excellent instruments, and actually I still kind of wish I had my old Yamaha at least as like a backup instrument, but the Yamaha as compared to like the balanced or other vintage horns had a harder time projecting and getting the sound to be, I guess, as resonant in the upper register. Like once you go above F with the register key, it was really hard to get like the fullness and projection of the sound that I could get in the vintage instrument. And actually I haven't played a Yamaha in a while now, and I'm curious to just try it just because my own playing has advanced, and I wonder if I could actually maybe still get the sound, because I feel like my fundamentals are stronger now. But that would be something to try out. So I've had the balanced action now for, let's see, I guess I've been playing that maybe for about 5 years or so. And I feel like it's still a work in progress in terms of being able to control it exactly the way I want to. I mean, when I'm really on top of my practicing, then I'm really happy with the sound and everything. And intonation wise, it's actually pretty good. Like if I'm really working on my overtones and long tones and trying to lock in my intonation, I feel like I can be pretty on top of it, especially like a lot of times I'll play in unison with a guitar player. And that's just really like the test for me, because they're like always dead on in tune. So if I could line up with that, especially like in the high register, like holding out high Bs and C sharps and all that stuff, if I can do that, then I know I'm in good shape. So I do definitely have to work on that. I know like I've tried sometimes on gigs, I've had to like borrow instruments for different reasons if my horn's like in the shop, and like just going to like a Mark 6 or like a modern horn, the intonation is just like, it just locks in easier. But in terms of sound, for me, the balance like beats most other horns out, no question. So that's why I stick with it, even though I would, of course, always like to have a slightly better intonation. I feel like if I'm working as I should, then I can make the intonation happen on my own. So lately, I guess maybe within the past 3 or 4 years, I've been getting more into even other tenor players who maybe like 10 years ago when I was playing more alto, or like sort of also getting into playing more tenor. Some of these players I just wasn't really into. I couldn't necessarily wrap their concept around my head or really get into their sound as much. But now there's some of my favorite players, such as Joe Lovano, Mark Turner, George Garzone, still Branford, but also maybe getting more into some of Branford's more classical playing, like the album he released just a few years ago where he's playing just solo in a cathedral, and he's doing some classical pieces. I think he does like an oboe sonata on tenor, and just his sound on that and his style to me is really nice. I just really like it. So I think just trying to absorb more of those sounds and concepts has also helped me kind of figure out what things I need to do to continue to improve my tenor technique. And so it's been interesting to think, starting out being really hardcore into Kenny Garrett, and then just like you sort of go on this natural evolution of what you like and how your own sound develops, along with like what your own personal tastes are, but then naturally your own, I guess, inner voice just starts to come out naturally, and then you sort of gravitate towards other particular types of players and styles as well. But there are a lot of other guys I'm really into now. Another great tenor player that I really like a lot is Noah Preminger. He's just got such a nice style and like concept. But it's fun to just explore new players, and I am curious now to maybe try a couple of the other modern tenors, just because I know the technology is like constantly advancing. There's one that's the Ishimori brand. I've seen a couple of videos of guys playing those, and they seem really nice. I'd also like, if I can, to maybe try out some of the SBAs again, just to compare, now that I've had more, I guess, practice time under my belt with my tenor, just to see, you know, now that my own comfort level has gone up, just to see if there's like more of a difference there. Or just sort of like what I would think about those horns. So yeah, that's the story. Basically how I got to using the tenor that I'm using now, and hopefully some of you found this useful, and feel free to ask any questions if you're going through this journey on your own. I'm happy to help, or just sort of give my own insight. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.
Ready?
Yep.
No! That's terrible. Okay. Hold on. Wait. Oh, it's going. The goal is to hit the target.
Is this a good snowball?
Yeah. Oh, you. Oh, that was good.